everyone, I'm Heather and I'm filming this video today from the Disney Wonder, which is one of my, maybe even my favorite cruise ship. And I want to talk to you in today's video about 5 reasons why smaller cruise ships like this one and cruise ships that are even smaller than this are better than large, huge cruise ships. Okay, now this is my opinion obviously, but it is also the opinion of 2 of my kids that have been on this size ship with me before. But I do think that a lot of people agree with us on this, and I also think that once you listen to my reasoning, you might agree with me too. So these are 5 reasons why smaller cruise ships are better. Reason number 1, it's easier to get around a smaller cruise ship. It's so much easier to make your way around when the ship isn't so big that you're completely overwhelmed and you feel like you're gonna get lost. The last cruise ship we went on before this one was Royal Caribbean's Harmony of the Seas, which is one of the largest cruise ships in the world. So we're definitely 5 months apart comparing one of the largest cruise ships in the world to one of the smaller end cruise ships that are still sailing the seas today, okay? So we have a good basis for comparison. Harmony of the Seas is not complicated. It's a pretty reasonable, organized layout. There's the neighborhoods, and they have good maps and signage and everything on Royal Caribbean to help you find your way around, and you can use the app and things like that. So it's not necessarily, it's not confusing. I know there are some ships that are confusing, that do have confusing layouts and designs, but for the most part, I think a smaller cruise ship is always going to be easier to find your way around just because it's smaller. Also, if you have a mobility issue like I do with my bad ankle, the smaller the ship is, the less overall moving around and walking you're going to have to do. So even if you're like in a wheelchair or you have a cane or, you know, anything like that, it's just going to be nicer when the ship isn't so huge that you know, it takes an hour to get from this end to this end. So I think that's nice. And like one example I thought of was last night at dinner, Ben and I are both lactose intolerant, and we wanted something that had dairy. And we realized it after we had already started eating. And I said, do you want me to run back to the room? Or actually, I think it was lunch. Yeah, it was lunch. Do you want me to run back to the room and get it? And he said, sure. And doing that didn't take that long. How long was I gone?
A while.
Oh, that's because I actually grabbed the wrong thing. Check this out. These are Lactaid. And these are lens wipes that we use to like clean off our cameras, lenses and stuff. They are both little white squares. I got all the way back to the room and I realized halfway back to the dining room that I had grabbed one of these instead of these. My point is that you never have to go very far to like get back to your room or anything like that. Number 2 reason why smaller cruise ships are better: the onboard atmosphere. When you're on a smaller cruise ship and there's fewer crew and there's fewer passengers, you see the same passengers over and over. You see the same crew members over and over. You get to know their names. They get to know your name. It seems easier to like chat with people and get to know people and things like that. If you were cruising solo, I would definitely want to feel more comfortable cruising by myself on a smaller cruise ship because I feel like it's a lot easier to get to know other people on a smaller cruise ship and you have an off chance of seeing them again. I compare this to like, there was one semester where I went to college at a very large university in Chicago, Illinois. And in the time I was there, and I ended up returning to the first college I had gone to the year before because it was much, much smaller. In the time that I was at that big, big school, I felt like I never saw the same person twice other than like people in my actual classes. And it felt impossible to make friends. And it's kind of like that. It's kind of like the difference between a small private college and a big gigantic state university. Is the difference between a small cruise ship and a big cruise ship in the ease of getting to know people and familiarity. And so when you have that familiarity and that ease of getting to know people and recognize faces and learn people's names and things like that, it just makes the onboard atmosphere of the cruise ship feel friendlier. It feels friendlier and it feels more welcoming and it just feels really nice. It feels kind of homey. Reason number 3 that small cruise ships are better is you can get to more ports. Big cruise ships, huge cruise ships, megaships cannot fit in a lot of the ports in the world. The Earth is a large place for a cruise ship to traverse. There are thousands of ports all over the world, and big ships can't get into most of them, honestly. There's a very limited number of places that those really huge cruise ships can go. And there's even more than that, a very limited number of places where huge cruise ships can dock. In a lot of places, a big cruise ship might be able to go there, but it's going to have to be a tender port. They're going to have to anchor some ways away from the port. You're going to have to take a tender boat, and you're going to have to go there on a littler boat. So smaller cruise ships like the one we're on, or cruise ships that are even smaller than this, are going to have more access to more ports and be able to go to more interesting places all over the planet. Because they're smaller, they can get into smaller ports, and they can much more frequently dock at ports that the big ships can't get to. So that can be a real advantage if you want to be able to explore as many different ports and itineraries as possible. Okay, reason number 4 that small cruise ships are better, and this one seems backwards, but there's something called the space to passenger ratio. And what that means is how much square footage, if you will, is there per passenger. And this seems strange, but on a small ship, it's more. There's actually more space per passenger on small ships than there is on large ships. Okay, and there's a very specific reason for this. There's a reason that cruise lines keep building bigger and bigger ships. One reason only, and if you think it's anything other than this, it's not. The reason that cruise lines keep building bigger and bigger ships is money. That's the only reason they keep doing that. It's not because they love those ships. I mean, those ships are very expensive to build, and they're difficult to build, and they're limited in where they can go. The reason that they keep building bigger and bigger cruise ships is because they can pack more people on them. The more people that are going on a ship, the more fares they're getting, the more people are on board spending their money on board. So the cruise line is going to make more profit with bigger ships than they are with smaller ships. There's only a limited number of passengers on a smaller ship. That's going to make a totally different experience for the passenger, which is why a cruise on a smaller ship is also going to cost more, because you have fewer passengers to spread the cost of the cruise out amongst. But along with this, you also are going to have a more positive experience on a smaller cruise ship because you have more space. There's more public spaces where you can, I mean, we can walk around anywhere on here, and there's just going to...
I have walked the length of the ship like 3 times because I had to go from aft to the front.
Yeah, there's little seating areas everywhere. The lounge space feels bigger. You'll find actual empty rooms. The cabins are bigger. We talked about this in my difference between Harmony of the Seas and Mariner of the Seas. I'll link that video up here. The cabins on Mariner of the Seas, a smaller ship, not small, but a smaller ship than Harmony, were larger and more spacious than the cabins on Harmony of the Seas, because they make the cabins on the big ships smaller so they can pack more people in, so they can have more people in more cabins. So your passenger space ratio is going to be better. You're going to feel like you have more space on a smaller cruise ship, which I know doesn't seem logical, but it's true. And the last and 5th reason that small cruise ships are better than large cruise ships is they actually end up being more all-inclusive. On large cruise ships, take for example Carnival's Mardi Gras, Norwegian Breakaway or Getaway, Royal Caribbean's, anything in the Oasis class, those big ships are nickel and diming you like crazy. They're charging extra for all these things, all these attractions and stuff that they put on the ship. On smaller ships, they just include everything in the cruise fare. The smaller the ship, the more likely it is that most or all of what you're getting in your cruise ship experience is already included in your cruise fare. They're not going to be charging you extra for hardly anything. A few cruise lines are truly all-inclusive. If you want a more all-inclusive experience, you want to be on a smaller ship. The bigger the ship that you go on, the more extras you're going to have to pay for, which again seems backwards, but that's how it is. So these are the 5 reasons that we like smaller cruise ships better than large cruise ships. I'd like to hear your opinion. What do you think? Do you agree with these? Did these surprise you? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, interesting, or you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, I really wish you would subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. It would really mean a lot to me if you would subscribe. It does not cost you anything. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Have a great day and safe travels.